The following is a conversation with Jacqui Loustau. Jacqui is a cybersecurity expert with over 2 decades of global experience in IT and information security, and she is the founder and executive director of the Australian Women in Security Network, AWSN. Jacqui is passionate about security and collaborating with others to drive innovation and change within the industry. She is also the co-founder of the AWSN Cadets, Security Job Profile Project, Project Friedman, and the CyberShift Alliance. Thank you, Jacqui, for your time. Subscribe to the Bytes podcast for more conversations like this.
Were ahead of the times when it came to technology. So I had a really great teacher who really encouraged a lot of us into learning about technology.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents also were very into it, and they knew that computers were the future. And they every day they made me do touch typing every day, and I'd get grounded if I wasn't actually doing it. So I became a really fast touch typer, which was very advantageous when it came to writing assignments and doing anything really. So I really was passionate about that.
It's a soft skill that to develop really early on is now paid dividends over the industry exploding and it being so necessitated.
I feel like as a kid you'd think it was a punishment though, right?
I thought it was a punishment. Although they did, it was like this game that it was a Space Invaders game. So you actually had to type in words and it exploded on your face if you didn't do it in time. So it was a bit of a fun way of learning touch typing.
That's the best way to learn.
Absolutely best way to learn. So I think it was really fundamental that not only my family at home really encouraged it, but also my school really encouraged it as well. And I think that was very influential in terms of why I got really interested in technology. And I think that that's something that, today that we need to remember that a lot of that interest happens really early in our career journey, I guess, or our learning. And so I was really lucky also to get work experience, and because my dad was really interested, he was a doctor, but really interested in technology, he got me in contact with somebody who worked at Australia Post, and they had this work experience program, and I was able to go to each of those different areas, which was fantastic, and learn about different areas of technology. So that really then again reinforced the importance of IT and how it worked in the practical sense of it.
Yeah, that's really valuable because not a lot of people have that. Firstly, the at-home experience where everyone's on board with you learning about technology, and then your school supporting you, going straight into working and seeing it in real life. I think that's so invaluable to get started that early.
Absolutely. And it then made me like it so much that I just went, they seemed to get along with me. They offered me a part-time job while I then went to uni, which was really great. So then I worked at a help desk there. So I worked at the help desk. They just were very flexible with the hours. Then I was able to study IT at Monash at the same time as work. And I guess another important lesson there is that I then understood the purpose of what I was studying. So what I was studying at university, I was learning about why all these things happened while I was working at the help desk. So that really helps apply it directly, which is really important. I think that's really, and I guess the other thing is like trying to get different types of work experience, I think is really important in a young age, because then that then encourages them to go, well, actually, this is what I want to do.
And it also rounds out your personality a bit too. I think working with different types of people in different roles can really prepare you for what's to come.
Absolutely. And because I could type really fast,
I
like talking to people and I love solving problems and helping people. Help desk was just the perfect job for me. I loved it so much.
I'm jealous about the touch typing because I learned really late. I used to be one of those chicken peckers before. I'm not too bad now, but I was complete rubbish for a long time. Let's talk about the help desk situation. What's the most ridiculous request you've ever had come through a help desk?
So we used to get all types, the IT crowd. Yeah,
yes,
you get that.
Love it.
Yeah, like I just love that scene where they talk about the whole reboot thing because pretty much
have you tried turning it on and off?
Have you turned it on and off and on? Exactly. I used to get all kinds of requests. Like they think anything that's electronic, so
is part
printers,
of your job.
Yeah, exactly. Printers, faxes, anything like the fridge. I even got the fridge is not working. I'm like, that's nothing to do with
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, exactly. So we used to get all random things like that. I used to get also the whole, the computer's not turning on and then is it plugged in, all that type of thing. So
there is that sentiment of IT people are can be a bit hard to deal with. And it's like, well, if you also had people assuring you a machine is turned on and you have to drive several hours to boot a server and then you get there and it's not even turned on.
Well, the screen's off.
You understand to a degree why they can get a bit tense about those things. Do you think that the background in support and this kind of having to have the patience with people around technology parlayed quite well into your kind of experience in cybersecurity as well?
Absolutely, because all the type of questions that we got, so password resets and understanding what's happening on a computer. I then moved into PC support from there. So then I was like hardening computers and all those foundational elements are really important when it comes to cybersecurity and that foundation. And having some of the understanding the underlying technology, networking, etc., was really fundamental. I think that made it much easier for me to then transition into cybersecurity.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't have when you were doing all the PC hardening. You probably didn't realize that was an element of cybersecurity or what that even was leading to.
Absolutely, no, you didn't. Yeah.
And I imagine that transition from info security to cybersecurity. I mean, getting in early, you've kind of gone in early in multiple capacities, right? With like the early on touch typing technology and then kind of being so early to cyber as well, like with that foundational knowledge. Do you think that's helped cultivate some of the views you've had around how to work within cyber?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And the opportunities that I received also as some of those fundamentals with a lot of the programs that we've created as part of AWSN, I'm trying to replicate some of those because I knew that each of those different steps really helped me in my career and that background understanding. So, for example, I also worked as a Unix administrator, so that really helped also, not that I realized at the time, but that really helped as well with understanding how Unix operates and doing commands and things like that. So I think all that work really helped. And I guess the turning point for me for getting into cybersecurity was that I was at a help desk. They wanted to move it overseas. I didn't want to move overseas. And they went, well, we've got this accelerator program. Would you like to go on it? And I went, sure, I'll give it a go. Why not? And they sent me to Houston for 6 weeks and I had to learn intensive networking, so I had to do my CCNA, I had to do Microsoft, and CSC, I think it was called.
You did all that in the 6 week training.
It was rapid upskilling boot camp.
And SANS. So we had to do all the study, but then, CCNA, we had to do an exam then, but then all the other ones we had to do it within 6 months. So it was a really accelerated program. But those foundations were fantastic because even though we came out as consultants not being able to potentially work in that, we had that background, and then just with experience, this program was great. They spent obviously a lot of money upskilling engineers across the world, and then they put us onto projects, and then we got to work with experienced consultants on these projects, these security projects. So.
That's great because you'd know the recipe, and then you'd know how to interact with those engineers that were going to be on the tools.
Yes,
yeah.
And from a skills cultivation perspective, even the bringing new people into people that are experts, that kind of protege effect, it almost emboldens that skill set for the experts by sharing it and teaching others. So it's a great system where everyone grows from it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you've worked on some pretty high-profile projects, I guess, and you've worked in Europe and the UK. Is there a big difference between how, say, people overseas deal with sort of cyber projects than in Australia?
Yeah, so one difference I did see, there was quite a few actually, but the one that really stood out for me was when I was in the UK and in France as well, even, it was really ingrained into me really early on about risk management.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, everything about risk management, the ISO 27001 was called BS, something else before. And then when I came to Australia, it seemed like it was less of a focus. So it was very much let's implement all these tools and make sure that we've
more technical tools than
exactly, rather than it being risk-based.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that was one area which didn't seem like we were taking on some of those frameworks and things like that. This was 10 years ago, by the way. Now we're caught up, and I think risk has become very much in the forefront. So that's really great. I guess the other things that I found was that there was a lot more sharing back then as well. So you were very quickly integrated into that sharing of what's going on. And I know we're now 10 years later and we're getting better at that, which is really good. And I think that the technology as well was more advanced over there in terms of getting access to a lot of the tools, and training as well in those tools as well were a lot more advanced as well.
Some of our infrastructure here in Australia from a cyber and digital perspective is pretty nascent. I mean, only getting broadband or cable internet, NBN type speeds as far as like the last 5 years. That's pretty late to the game in a lot of ways. So I can imagine a lot of those things were barriers for Australia, kind of establishing itself as more of a unified approach to cyber.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is that, I'd come from Australia working PC support and Unix administration. Then I went overseas for 20 years and got international experience. When I came back to Australia, I really struggled to find a job because they were like, you don't have cyber experience that's relevant to Australia. So that experience that I'd had, which I thought was, really like I'd worked on.
That was going to set you apart.
Yeah. I was like, oh, it's actually disadvantaged. This is
it did set me apart right over here.
Exactly.
Do you think there's more of an appetite for that kind of homegrown skill set? I mean, I know that in Australia, we're obviously looking at a cyber skill shortage over the next 10 years, and with the strategy of 2030 being the most cyber resilient nation in the world. Do you think that there are things that are severely limiting that by looking outside of Australia to that skill?
I think we are getting better at that, but at the same time, in other ways we're not as well. So in terms of, being able to recognize what those other countries bring and that skill set, I think is not something that we easily can translate unless, like, I've seen that people that have been overseas and can see and value that overseas experience are more likely to maybe hire that. And I think the people that may not, it's the unknown, right? If you don't know what they know, it's really hard sometimes for you to see how that fits into your team.
Yeah, where it fits. And also from a compliance perspective as well. I mean, each country has its own regulations. So I guess it could be seen that if you've spent most of your career overseas, you're not going to be able to instantly slot into the needs of the organizations here.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about AWSN. What inspired you to create AWSN?
So after working, so many years, 14 years overseas in security and working on awesome job, like different projects and loving security because as you know, because you're in it, it is such an amazing area.
And addictive to get deeper and deeper into. The more you know. The more you know you realize you don't know.
Correct. And you're just like, oh, okay, no, I want to go in here now. Oh, no, I want to go in here now and learn about this. So it's just so broad, so amazing. I just walked into my first kind of event and there was no women in the room. And I just went, I've come back to Australia and I can't believe this is what's happening. Like I got used to it over, overseas because it was the same thing. But I guess it had that kind of, oh, okay, why am I?
I'm home. Why is it like this here?
Yes, exactly. I was like, this is crazy. Security is awesome. Like, why are there not more women? And then I found the only other woman that was in that particular event. And I said, okay, look, I don't know anyone here because I was kind of feeling a bit anxious in this.
With our powers combined.
With our powers combined, let's, meet up and do something. And so she then introduced me to a few other women, which was really great. We met up just, for coffee just before a conference. So that's kind of how AWSN started. We went, okay, we're going to a conference. Let's all meet for a coffee so then we can go into this conference and not feel alone, I guess. And that was really nice. And then we just went, well, let's start a LinkedIn group. And so we started a LinkedIn group and then people started joining. And then we went, oh, there's actually a few more women than we thought were in this industry. And then somebody
probably seeking a similar group to,
to connect with. And then somebody from Canada, Bonnie, she then messaged me during my maternity leave and she said, look, I saw that you've created this LinkedIn group. There's actually some other women in other states who are wanting to do the same thing. Can I connect you with them? And so she connected me with them. Amazing. So then we started our Canberra and Perth chapter that way as well.
Cool.
And then they all just started to build their own little ecosystem in those states. And we would just talk about, okay, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to make this a thing?
Yeah.
And they went, yeah, we should make this a thing. So we then made what's called AWSN from there.
And how many people were at the start of like that we meet up before the conference, and kind of was that initial group quite small or?
Yeah, there were 6 of us. And then they started to grow. And then
how many members in the AWSN today?
There's 4,000.
Amazing.
So cool.
That's an amazing story from literally the title is from grassroots to organization, and the numbers alone, it's like you cannot discount it.
I think it's quite amazing because, your experience walking into that room and thinking, oh, not sure where I fit in here, to now having this huge organization that has helped so many people get started in their careers. It just shows how much it was needed, and nobody sort of had the wherewithal to go, all right, let's get this organized, guys. Let's just try it. And while I think walking in with that attitude may have not yielded the same results, it's just about build it, keep on building it, let people come to you, and then, let's use teamwork to get this thing off the ground.
Absolutely. There was no expectation. Like I never, ever would have imagined what it's become. But absolutely along the way, there's been so many countless numbers of people that have helped make it what it is. So even though I have the title of founder, there was many, many people involved in making what it is today. And I couldn't have done it with these people and organizations.
Shows the passion. I mean, everyone I've met through AWSN meetups has been so passionate. And it's women from all ages as well. Some that have just left uni to some who are re-entering the workforce years and years later, going, I'm into this. Like, I'm super into it, and I need to get in any way I can. So, and I keep seeing the same people, and we're always like sharing ideas. And yeah, it's really fantastic organization.
Thank you.
Life things notwithstanding, how many people of that initial small group of founders or collectives are still kind of involved in the AWSN today?
So they're not actively involved, but they're still in contact and they come in and out. So, for example, Helene was one of our board members. She was one of that initial people. So she was a board member just the last 3 years. So she came back and wanted to give back again.
That's awesome.
Michelle, I did a presentation to her company the other day. She was one of the original. I was texting another one of the founding board members the other day because, she's, we're still in contact and it's always
still
really
very much part
to hear about it. So they're still part of that.
Yeah.
Still the family.
Part of that community, still part of that family.
That's amazing.
Nice.
And I think that, to your point, Beck, about passion and drive, it's, if you had the opportunity to leave something and not come back, you wouldn't come back unless you were dedicated to the craft and the skill set and the sharing aspect of it also. It speaks to the value that obviously they saw in the organization and continue to see in the organization.
Yeah. And that's like with all the members. I know that people dip in and out, and that's fine because I know that life happens, things change in your career. And I just hope, I guess, they feel that that's the home that they can always come back to when they need a place to then just, regroup and be able to find somebody that can help them through the next phase of whatever they're going through. So
I think in some ways, someone disappearing for a while means you've done your job really well because AWSN has nurtured them, helped them, and then launched them into that career. And if they're too busy with their amazing new career to pop in, every month, I think that's great. It's great that they've just launched themselves and that they're doing exactly what they intended to.
Yeah. And we're loving the fact that some of them now, some of the people that we had at the beginning who were students and we helped them get their first job are now becoming mentors. And that just really
circle.
is awesome because they just like, I want to give back because, AWSN gave back to me, but I also want to help somebody else who went through what I went through and things like that, which I think is
it's
really
just so wholesome.
nice. Yeah.
It is. They're coming home to roost.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I'm up.
It's really nice.
I think in cyber, we're very much surrounded by a lot of doom and gloom a lot of the time. And with these types of stories, when I hear, how much people fall in love with the craft and like the industry behind kind of the doom and gloom of it all, it really speaks to the shining light that is within the industry. You know what I mean? It really makes the sharing aspect a core part of what drives a lot of people to be in a part of this as well.
Yeah, and helping people because a lot of people got into cyber because they want to help somebody. And I find
someone
that
took a chance on them, they'll take a chance on someone, paying it forward.
Exactly.
The industry is really open with sharing, I find.
Yes.
And you just have to ask the question. Because a lot of people are like, I don't want to seem stupid. I don't want to go up and ask this question because I think I should already know the answer. But every time I've just gone, hi, I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to ask you a dumb question. And then they'll just be like, that's not dumb at all. Let me tell you how I found this out. And then you realize there's no such thing as the perfect expert. It's just a learning process.
A lot of the time, I think experts, particularly in niche subjects like cyber or, reflecting on my background in academia, they're just so excited someone's asking about their thing that only they really know that much about.
Yeah.
They're so stoked that finally someone is like, oh, can you tell me a bit more about that? Yeah, I can tell you so much more. So there is that kind of level of excitement around the sharing that I think kind of pushes it forward as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there is a lot of goodwill in our industry, and that's what I really love about it as well. And I think I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by a lot of that goodwill, which is
When I studied my Cert 4 about 4.5 years ago now. When I started it and I was telling my friends and my family, they were like, what is that? You're going to work with computers? I'm like, well, yeah, but, and then, one person was like, oh, you want to get into IT? And I'm like, well, no, but yes, but, and it was such a difficult thing to explain. And it made me doubt myself. I thought, wait, is that what I'm doing? Am I about to be that IT person? And I was like, yes and no, and maybe, but there's more. And I love that there's more because there's just nothing that you can't sort of get into that doesn't have another story across it. So even now when I try to explain to people, impossible, completely impossible.
Yeah. I find that when I try to explain it to my mom, she still doesn't get it.
Yeah, my mum just says, top secret, got it. And I was like, okay.
So looking back on your journey, kind of from these nascent stages as a LinkedIn group to now being 4,000 members strong across multiple states, what were some of the most valuable takeaways? And obviously there were probably many things that occurred over that time. If you had to put some flagpoles across the process, what were those 10-fold moments for you think?
I think one of the key things was organizations getting behind what we do. Like that was really an important step because obviously when we started partnerships, absolutely. So at the beginning, obviously we got to a point where we're like, we've got to pay for a website. We've got to pay for, all those things that operational stuff that goes into starting your own business, but is an association and member-based and volunteer-based, volunteer-led. So those partnerships were super crucial at the beginning, and AusCyber and CyberLens were our first organisation that kind of helped out with that, which was really key, because that then helped us then be able to formulate ourselves, which was really super key.
And was that more around like funding or more logistical support, or how does that
Both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Some of that funding, but also that springboard to kind of go, okay, are we on the right track when it comes to what we're doing? And that also kind of the validation that they believe in what we're doing as well.
Legitimization of, yeah. No, that's really cool.
Amplifies the message as well when an established entity kind of proliferates your message as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reach would be amazing. I mean, I hope AWSN goes for many, 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 many years, but what do you think of a future where there is better equality and parity in the security industry? Do you think AWSN would need to still exist in that world?
No, and that's always been my kind of motto. I said, I look forward to the day when AWSN is not needed. And every day I go, am I still needed? Is AWSN still needed? Because that would be ideal. Like we won't need the likes of AWSN.
In saying that, I mean, I do also feel there will always be a desire for a community, whether it be gendered or, whether it be around backgrounds. There will always be kind of an interest of like-minded people to kind of come together. So I do think there is obviously legs to the organization beyond gender parity. But yeah, it is interesting to hear you say that, because I guess when is that job?
What is success?
Done? What does success look like?
We still have a long way to go. Long way to go, just because now what we're looking at is how do we educate all women and girls on security, just basics, not even to get into cyber, but how do we just even educate them because they're getting left behind?
I mean, I think a great story is that computer science was a female job back in the day when it first started. I mean, look at the women that did algorithms for the military and for NASA and things like that. I mean, that can't be discounted. I mean, that was seen as women's work because it looked clerical. And now it's evolved, and I don't know where along the way it kind of swapped. But, I mean, I think if more women knew that was the birth of programming and computer science.
Yeah.
We're incidentally in a room named after Grace Hopper. There are a lot of women at the forefront of science computing and things that I feel like some of that has been discounted by the now more dominant.
I mean, a woman's group was the founder of the ASD back in the day. There's a really rich history there, and I just don't think it's talked about enough with enough volume, I suppose, to make people feel really comfortable about going, hey, this could be for me. And, I talk to a lot of women who think the technical challenge scares me. I don't know if I can learn that. I don't know if I can learn that to my own standard that I would feel comfortable. But, it's
that fear, of course. Yeah, definitely. And when I talk to, other mothers, I say, okay, well, I'm going to do a cyber education session to you. They're like, oh, no, but I don't look after the technology at home. You can get my husband to do it. And I went, no, you need to learn how to do this. Like, let me show you and everything. But it's that fear of technology. You're scared. I don't want to do it wrong. And I think we've cast it's like this really complicated area, just like finance sometimes as well. People get scared about finance. And
people are afraid of numbers.
Similar to when it comes to technology and cyber as a part of that too. So,
what do you find is the easiest way to help them get over those hurdles?
It's about showing them.
Literally just getting them to
you can do it.
Encouragement and showing them.
Exactly.
And the learning phase is the funnest part because you get to break things with no consequence. And then you realize, oh, now I can learn how to fix it. Now I can understand why it broke.
Exactly.
That's the fun part.
And that's why we run our female programs, to be honest, because what we found is that when they go into, a class, sometimes they don't want to ask questions because they don't want to be asked silly questions, as you said before, Bec. And so what we want to do is to create an environment where they go, okay, I'm with other women and there's a bit of comfort there in terms of, and
we're in the same boat.
We're in the same boat kind of thing, and no judgment and all that type of thing. So a lot of the time we've had the trainers go, they ask a lot of questions. I'm like, yeah, they're probably just asking all the questions that they've never been able to have the opportunity to ask. They've been able to, experiment in a comfortable environment. So that's why we do our female-only cohort programs. I wanted to actually mention that because a lot of people just ask, why have you got training programs? Why can't you have, men and other people come along to it? And I would love to open it up to everyone, but there's so many other groups that,
that already do that.
Able to do that. What we're trying to do is to build that comfortable environment where they not only learn about something and can experiment together, but I'm hoping that they'll also become friends with the others, build those connections that they will then, if they go to a conference or they're looking for that next job, they've got those new networks together. So,
to your point of you starting so early with the touch typing and things like that, do you think that potentially some of the resistance comes from adult kind of ego, like tripping yourself up thing, where if girls were encouraged to start early, potentially they might not have as much of that reservation of, technology is like hard and scary, because they haven't necessarily internalized that kind of, you should keep in mind technology is scary and complicated. It might get more women into it. I don't know. Is that something that you think is
Yeah, possibly. I think that, there's a lot more coding groups, which is good for kids. The thing that I think that's fantastic for the people that may not have even thought about coding. The only thing that I think we need to just balance that with is other areas of technology that exists out there, because if somebody doesn't love coding, it may put them off technology thinking, okay, coding is technology, is about coding. And that's not what we want as the impression, I guess. I, for myself, was not a super amazing coder. And so if I had that, maybe it would have put me off. So it's that balance of, yes, exposing them to coding because it's really important, fundamental, but also what are the other areas of technology that they can then be exposed to, or cybersecurity even, which is another interesting area that they can then go, oh, actually, no, I do love this particular part, like that problem-solving element and things like that.
Yeah, because when I was starting, I didn't know which area to get into. Because when you start off doing, say, a Cert 4 or even a short course, you think, oh, I have to sit here and do this for how long? And you don't realize, oh, wait, but this tiny part of this part over here is actually an entire learning journey. And, you can sort of pull things out and I still don't really know where I'm going to go, but I've got there's a lot of opportunity in front of me that I just have to chip away at it and say, oh, is this fun? Yes. Is this fun? Also, yes.
Yes.
And that's what makes it hard.
And it also builds on your experience. So you're trying something and then you don't realize, but that experience and what you've done in that particular project or area then is layered on top of everything else. You get that more holistic look. And I think that is super important in cyber, especially because you have to interact with so many different areas and everything is interrelated. You've got to know a little bit about why vulnerabilities get into code. You need to understand, networking, because you need to know, and you need to understand all different types of elements of, when it comes to cybersecurity and technology and how it happens. And so every project that you go on, you go, oh, okay, that's how it kind of fits into the picture.
Yeah. I think also for people who are late starters like me, really reframing your prior experience in other industries, thinking, I came from a marketing, SEO, and arts background. And I thought nothing is going to translate. But then I sort of thought, okay, well, SEO is about algorithms. I deal with websites all the time. Sometimes I have to deal with problems with that website. And, once I built it out and sort of really wrote down what my skills were, I could see where they did fit. And even with my art stuff, I mean, being able to talk to people is a soft skill that people don't really think is important in cyber, but I have found it to be one of my most important skills.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And we talk a lot about those transferable skills because we need more people that have that background. I think cybersecurity is not necessarily, it's not really an entry-level job per se. You need a bit of business experience or something else experience when you get into it. So one example we always give is about nurses. So, for example, with their job, they're very good at triage. They're really good at learning really fast. They're very good under pressure. So some of those core fundamentals of who they are really work well into a lot of areas of cybersecurity.
Because it's hard to teach. You can't teach a novice that.
You can't teach a novice how to do that, correct?
Yeah. So what has been your career highlight to date?
Career highlight to date?
Other than founding AWSN.
I have to say that It's actually quite recent. So AWSN was invited to be part of the Home Affairs Executive Cybersecurity Council.
Wow.
So that
is amazing.
Pretty amazing to just, for our community to have a seat at the table. I thought that was really great.
No, congratulations. That is such amazing news.
And, in amplifying the mission and stuff, did you find that really gave a bump to the digital presence, if you will, for AWSN?
Maybe too early to know that.
That's totally fair. Totally fair. Yeah, no worries.
But I'm hoping that, my seat on there or AWSN seat on there will then give a platform for our community to have a say.
Absolutely.
So
no, that's fantastic. I think it's definitely where you guys need to be, because at that national presence, you can...
And at the table.
Yeah, you can do so much more. I think we'll wrap up with one more question. Who is your role model in cyber or otherwise?
My role model? Oh.
So I know you're a role model for so many women entering the business, but who's yours?
Who's mine? Ooh.
Sorry, I put you on the spot with that one.
The hardest question for me. Hang on. You might need to... Can I just have a think about that?
Yeah.
You can ask me again.
I'll ask you again. Oh, we can do another question if you want. I've got... so these are questions that have been asked by our colleagues.
Oh.
So one of them is also, what is your favourite book, cyber or otherwise? That might be a bit easier.
Okay. Gosh. I can talk about all this other stuff. I think about inwards. I'm like,
that's all right. We didn't have to ask those.
Favorite.
Or even
so many.
A few people, thought leaders that you like reading their thoughts.
Okay, I know book. All right, book.
All right. So I'll start with that.
Okay.
All right, Jacqui, we're going to finish up with a personal question. What is your favourite book, cyber or otherwise?
So one of my favourite books is The Tipping Point. And I really enjoyed that book because it talks all about how we lead up to something and an event or something catastrophic kind of happens to then change things. And I always I've always used that kind of analogy when it comes to, for example, cybercrime or something in cyber to say, when are we going to get to that tipping point, which will then just tip things over and we just have to go all in and
the
then
paradigm's changed.
The paradigm's change.
Yep.
And I find that concept really interesting. So I really enjoyed that book.
Oh, who's the author of that one?
Malcolm Gladwell.
Brilliant.
Great author. It's reminiscent of a quote that I often bring up from DEF CON, which is if you want to get your organization excited about disaster recovery, burn down the business across the street. And it's kind of that sentiment of people don't think about the cyber security, this infosec protection stuff until something bad happens. And then they start looking at, could that happen to us? I don't know. Should we look into that?
Well, it's the old show rather than tell at the end of the day.
Yes. And I know that like in my old days when I was doing one of the greatest challenges I used to have in InfoSec was trying to convince them that this could happen. So we were like, in theory, the probability of it happening is really low because it's never happened, but it could be really disastrous if it happens because we didn't have any, it's in the front news at the moment. So everyone understands how bad it could be. Yeah. But at the time, we didn't have that. So
in a way, those cyber criminals have kind of done society service in a weird way by raising that level of awareness across society to the nefarious attitudes that these people specifically will have, where they'll leak medical information, things of that nature.
But it shows the complacency, yes, but what have they been doing in the background for all these years?
Exactly.
And how much of your personal stuff is already completely compromised? Like, I think about my digital footprint and it makes me sweat. It's going to take me a long time to clean that up. And, I've got to get on top of it.
Can't get here soon enough.
Yeah.
Jacqui, thank you so much for your time. It's been really great to learn about your story and the journey of the AWSN. If people are interested in joining or getting more involved, where could they look out for?
So probably on our website, which is just awsn.org.au.
Easy.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Well, thank you as always. And we will hopefully be able to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. Welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me.